The wind swept across the dry plains like a tired sigh, rattling the loose boards of the old ranch house where Samuel Crow lived alone with his memories. A man carved thin by years of drought, loss, and silence. A man whose mornings began before the sun, not because he had hope, but because the animals still needed him even when the world had forgotten his name. And on this particular evening, as the sky bled orange into purple and Samuel finished his meager supper of beans and stale bread, a soft voice cut through the stillness, hesitant, trembling, almost afraid to exist, saying, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" And when Samuel turned, startled, hand instinctively tightening around the chipped plate, he saw her standing just beyond the fence line, a small girl no more than 12, thin as a fence post, barefoot, dust clinging to her dress like it was the only thing holding her together, her hair tangled, her face hollowed by hunger, yet lit by eyes so impossibly bright they stopped his breath, eyes that carried not desperation alone but something deeper, something ancient and aching. And for a long moment, Samuel could not speak because those eyes reached into a place inside him he had boarded shut the day his wife and unborn child were buried beneath a crooked oak after the fever took them. And in that silence the girl flinched, already preparing for rejection, already used to it, murmuring an apology and stepping back as if to disappear into the land itself. But Samuel's voice finally came, rough and unused, telling her to wait, to come closer. And when she did, he noticed how she tried to stand straight despite exhaustion, how she thanked him before he had even agreed, how she treated crumbs like gifts. And as he handed her his plate, she ate slowly, deliberately, as though savoring not the food but the kindness. And something in Samuel cracked, because no one had eaten at his table in 11 years. And when he asked her name, she said Lily. And when he asked where her family was, she lowered her gaze and said nothing at all. And that silence told him more than words ever could. So he offered her water, then a blanket, then, without planning to, without knowing why, a place by the fire for the night, telling himself it was only temporary, just until morning, just one good deed in a life that felt already over. But as Lily slept curled near the hearth, clutching the blanket like it might vanish, Samuel sat awake watching the flames dance. And for the first time in years his house felt less like a grave, and more like something breathing. And outside the wind softened, the cattle settled, and though Samuel did not know it yet, the miracle he had buried with his grief had just walked into his life, asking for leftovers. And if this story already stirs something in your heart, remember that kindness still lives in places like this. Subscribe now to XOB's Word for stories that restore faith in humanity, because this is only the beginning. Morning came differently after Lily arrived, sunlight spilling into the ranch house like it had permission again, and Samuel woke to the smell of warmed bread and the quiet sound of humming, a simple, gentle tune his wife once used to sing while tending the garden. And when he stepped into the kitchen and saw Lily standing on a stool stirring a pot with careful concentration, his chest tightened, not with pain this time, but with something dangerously close to hope. And as the days passed, Lily stayed not because Samuel asked her to, but because she worked harder than anyone he had ever known, feeding chickens, mending fences with clumsy fingers, talking softly to the cattle as if they were old friends. And at night she told Samuel stories of traveling, from town to town after losing her parents, to a wagon accident, of being chased away, ignored, invisible, and yet she never spoke with bitterness, only gratitude for small mercies. And slowly the ranch began to change, crops pushing through soil that had been barren for years, sick cattle growing strong, neighbors stopping by for the first time in a decade, whispering that Samuel's land felt different, and Samuel himself felt it too, felt the weight lifting, felt laughter return to his throat. And one afternoon when Lily collapsed from exhaustion, fever burning through her fragile body, Samuel carried her miles to the nearest doctor, begging, praying in a voice he hadn't used since the funeral. And the doctor later said it was a miracle she survived. And Samuel knew it wasn't luck, it was purpose. Because Lily hadn't come to be saved, she had come to save him. And when officials arrived weeks later searching for a missing heir, revealing Lily was the granddaughter of a wealthy land baron who had been desperately looking for her, Lily looked at Samuel with tears in her eyes and said she didn't want riches. She wanted home. And in that moment Samuel understood that miracles don't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes they come barefoot, hungry, asking for leftovers, and Samuel legally adopted Lily. turning down fortunes he never wanted, choosing instead the wealth of love. And years later, when the ranch flourished and laughter echoed across the fields, Samuel would tell anyone who asked that the greatest blessing of his life once stood at his fence, afraid to ask for food. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that kindness can change destiny, subscribe to the channel right now, because every story here carries a message the world desperately needs to hear, and your support helps keep these miracles alive.